Hello, and welcome to the Zen podcast of Buddha Jen. I'm Buddha Jen. Now, 12 years ago, I recorded a bunch of podcasts that got hundreds of thousands of downloads before I went homeless. And that's the Zen Buddhist podcast of Shaolin Zen. That's my Chan sect of Chinese Buddhism, the original Zen Buddhism. I created a cyber temple at shaolinzen.org. But that's the other podcast, and I haven't started adding on to those. I'm just re-releasing the old ones from 2009 right now, and it's 2021 now. So these podcasts are actually me, the current day Kung Fu teacher in 2021. And this is 008 episode, which is to me, a very, very Buddhist number. So this is episode 8, and it's also the first one I'm doing in video. So I have it, I get caught up my cords here. I've got it in video, and I got it in audio over here in Logic Pro. So I'm making two different versions, though they'll be the same thing. This audio over here is recorded with this mic, and that one over there, audio is recorded with this lavalier, which I got to stop smacking. It's got a very short cord on it. It's the Rode Smart Lav Plus omnidirectional. And I just looked it up because I wanted to put it in a little box and keep better track of it and protect it better. But I've just started using it. I got it in 2019, right before I ended my homelessness. So I actually got it because when I was homeless, I would put my iPhone, well, my previous version, I got this one after I got into the house, but my iPhone 6, this is an iPhone 11, I put my iPhone 6 on a little stand on my car, on top of my cab, and then I'd stand on top of the curb, and I'd have some eucalyptus trees behind me. And I had this one spot near the Regency Theater at a park there that I used to record a lot of, Matt, and cars would be going by behind me, and the wind would be blowing, and so they're not as clean. I might be able to go through and edit some of those and make them cleaner, which would be probably a really good idea. But at this point, like I said, this is the very first episode number 8 of the Zen podcast of Buddha Jen. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, and let's see, what was I going to say? So anyway, yeah, it's the first number. It's number 8, and it's first one in video. So this is the first video I'll be posting of these, and they're going to be the same basically, except like I said, different microphones recording them, but the same podcast in essence. Now the one I did before this, I messed up, and that was the episode 8 of the Buddha Z Explains podcast, in which I talk about Buddhism. And I messed up. I forgot to hit the record button on the camera. So I'm sitting here talking away to the camera, and at the very end I realized, hey, I didn't press the record button. So I went by, and so at the end I actually kept the audio recording, and then I re-recorded it just on the video. So the video and the audio are totally different on episode 8 of the Buddha Z Explains. That's what that one's called. Okay, so let's get to work here. All we got to do today is I'm going to read to you the table of contents. Now, in this podcast, because I'm the Kung Fu teacher on this one, the very first semester of no matter what school you join of mine, the Tai Chi Youth, the Buddha Kung Fu, or the Shaolin Chi Mantis, the very first semester I always teach the entire Yang Tai Chi Chuan short form, my version of it, which is pretty much the way, 90-some% the way I learned it. And then over the years, people told me to add this or do this or change this, and I made like 1 or 2 changes. So it's just slightly different than the way I learned it, which was mostly the one that Marshall Ho taught at Griffith Park. A couple of my senior student brothers who were my instructors, my Sihings at Chi Mantis back in the early 80s, they were going to the park, Griffith Park, and they kept asking me to go too, but I just had other things to do, and I was going to, I was driving all the way from Santa Monica to and sometimes I was even staying up in the valley. So I was driving 28 miles a day just to go to my Chi Mantis classes 2-3 days a week. And I was working construction, so I was, as some people realized, I was kind of living out of my car at my van for a year. I actually worked at the airport. Well, that's a whole other story, but let's not go into that. Okay, so this is episode 8, and I'm going to read to you the table of contents and explain what this book is, and then we're going to go through it episode by episode. And I'm going to read you this book, page by page. So here we are. Now I got a theme for each of these classes, and the theme for this one is Be a Shaolin Hero, which is really neat and an interesting concept because I just finished reading the book by one of my school brothers. I'm actually certified by Grandmaster Wong Jack Man of the San Francisco Jing Mo school. Wong Jack Man is the guy that fought Bruce Lee in 1964 in that legendary fight that everybody argues about. But fact is that it was so legendary that it's one thing that totally shook Bruce Lee up, and he spent the next 5 years recreating a whole new martial arts system because he dumped Wing Chun and didn't teach Wing Chun after that and created his Jeet Kune Do. And he added all kinds of stuff to it. Nunchucks, which is a Japanese farming weapon tool, and boxing and I don't know, judo, whatever else he learned. But he kind of like put a whole bunch of stuff, crammed a whole bunch of stuff together. And he tried to remember what his Ton Tuis was, or Tom Toys, what he had learned as a kid. And that's when I look at Jeet Kune Do exercise, I go, oh, that's a Ton Tui, that's this one, that's this one. It's kind of like a mixture of all the Ton Tuis put together, what little martial arts system he created. And so, with a little Wing Chun in. So it's kind of like the Tom Tuis and some Wing Chun and then a bunch of other martial arts all crammed together. So, but unfortunately, he destroyed. It's such a shame because he destroyed Kung Fu. He said, "Don't go to any master." He destroyed the whole master concept. I mean, how many people do you know who actually learned Jeet Kune Do? He said he was going to, be super famous, but he couldn't. He didn't package anything that could be packaged. It was just a whole bunch of stuff. And when you read the interviews of people who were in his classes, it was all just street fighting, a whole bunch of street fighting put together, and. That's what it was. And so he didn't create a martial arts style, just a martial arts, well, it's MMA. He was like, some people call him the founder of mixed martial arts because that's what he did. He just mixed up a whole bunch of stuff and called that his martial art. So if you want to follow in Bruce Lee's step, you need to go to like a half a dozen or a dozen masters or so and put a whole bunch of stuff together and that's your thing. Which is a real shame because Kung Fu is a way of life. It's not street fighting. It's not boxing. It's not even a sport. It's a way to live. It's a way to be a person. It's a way to interact with reality, a way to be a father, a way to be a teacher, a way to be a friend, a way to be a big brother, a way to even be a little brother. It's a way to learn and interact and be a good person in society, which of course street fighting is not. Street fighting is just being paranoid and wanting to beat anybody up who attacks you. It's not it has nothing to do with making you a philosopher or making you a better parent or making you a better business person. But all of those things are what Kung Fu is. Remember, the translation of Kung Fu is time and energy, or energy and time, or work and time. But the point is it's how you spend your time and the effort you put into it. So I like to call it time and effort. So Kung Fu is anything you do that's time and effort, which is even sleeping. When you're asleep, you're not dead. You got a little bit of effort going on and your body's rebuilding. So even sleeping is Kung Fu to some extent. So everything, standing, sitting, talking, teaching, and learning, everything is Kung Fu. So MMA is not Kung Fu. And it's just, what is it? It's just violence and aggression, and you got a certain amount of rules, but Bruce Lee didn't believe in rules, I mean, in the legendary fight, the first thing he tried to do was poke my master's eye out, and my master actually never kicked him. I mean, they went like 20-minute fight with my master never even using any of his kicks, and Wong Jack Man is famous for his kicking. And so all he did was just use his Kung Fu skills to basically ward him off and threw a couple of blows. And even the people that were there said that the hardest blow thrown was by Wong Jack Man. And when he had a chance to actually, he got his arm and he had him in a lock and he was considering knocking him out with the back of the head, he didn't. He just let him go and thought the fight was over. And then Bruce came back and wanted to fight some more because Bruce Lee would never lose. That was one thing my master didn't understand, Wong Jack Man, was that this was nothing about honor or competition. It was only about winning. And Bruce Lee does not know how to lose. He's a really bad loser, and which is what made him a big star and made him as famous as he was. He couldn't be second best. And so even when he'd lost, he refused to accept it. So he kept going and going and going until finally, I guess they called it off. Actually, that's what happened. It had been about 20 minutes and it got to a point where they just pulled him apart because it wasn't going anywhere. And nobody could say who the winner was because my master was mostly, I think from the way I understand it, he was being more defensive than aggressive. But like I say, the people that were there from the different witnesses in this book that talked, the hardest the loudest blast was actually from my master. And he's an iron palm master. So, he was trying as hard as he could not to injure Bruce Lee. His goal was not to use any kicking, to be fair, because he knew that Bruce Lee came from Wing Chun, and they don't have kicking in Wing Chun. So he thought it wouldn't be fair to use kicking, because it was just supposed to be a test of their skills. Bruce Lee had made a challenge. It was all based on Bruce Lee making a challenge at a movie theater, saying, hey, I can beat up anybody in San Francisco, Kung Fu, any Kung Fu teacher. And so the people Wong Jack Man wasn't even there. And they went to Wong Jack Man and said, hey, this guy Bruce Lee, man, he said he could beat up any Kung Fu master, You need to put him in his place, And my master just said, well, I'll see what he is. I'll test him. We can do a sparring. But he thought it was more friendly. He didn't realize it was a no-holds-barred, fight to the death type of thing, like Bruce Lee did. And so if it would have been, it would have been a shorter fight, and my master would have used kicking even, which he didn't do. Hey, speaking of kicking, I just kicked the camera. Okay, so anyway. All right, so let's get on with this class. But yeah, interesting book, Showdown in Oakland. That's what it's called, by my school brother, Rick L. Wing. I call him Bucky. That's his nickname at the school, is Bucky. But Rick Wing. And get that book. It's actually a really slow read. I can't actually say it was a great book to read, or or be really exciting. Even I got bogged down with a lot of the Chinese names and such. But it was a thorough book. He was just basically trying to throw as much information as he could into the book to make it as honest and documentary style as he could. Even explaining, of course, hey, I got a prejudice. I'm the disciple of Wong Jack Man. But he wasn't there, and so he was trying to just portray all the information as honestly and evenly as he could. Now, over the years, I've met some of the Bruce Lee fans and fanatics, and I don't tell them I'm a disciple of Wong Jack Man, because they're all really just totally hot-headed and testy, and not like us who are Shaolin. It's like, hey, whether he won or lost, we love our martial art. We like our style. We like the way it makes us healthy, and we live long. I mean, look, Wong Jack Man just only passed away in 2019, I think, and Bruce Lee died in the 70s. So your martial art is supposed to keep you alive and make you healthy and vital and a good person, an honorable person. And that was one thing that Bruce Lee's martial art had, was no honor. There's no honor in his martial art. So anyway, so it's really a shame that everybody looks at Bruce Lee as being the Kung Fu hero. And to me, he's not really a hero. He's just a thug, a street punk. But I like him in the movies. I've got every video, so don't get me wrong. I'm a Bruce Lee fan as an actor. As an actor, I love him. I think he's just fantastic. I've got every single movie he's made in DVDs and stuff. I honestly do. And I've watched them all, many of them several times. But in terms of Kung Fu influence and style and role model, it never has been. Never. Yeah, but anyway. So let's see. Be a Shaolin hero. So that's what I'm about. That's what Shaolin Kung Fu is about. It's to make you a better person, an honest person, an honorable person, a worthwhile person, a beneficial person, a person who's good for society, good for his friends, good for the human race. I'd like to think that's what I am. Okay, so let's continue here. Now, I got a list around here. It's back there. Well, I got two things to work on. We'll leave it at that. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to read the contents. This is from the Tai Chi Beginner book. And interesting story behind this is, if I haven't already told you, I wrote this in I wasn't in the maximum security prison, but I was teaching in a maximum security prison. And so I had been teaching my students since 1984, for about 5 years, 6, 7 years. Since this is 1991, when I was teaching there, 91 and 92. And I was teaching at this maximum security prison. And I realized I wanted to be more organized and have a real curriculum. And plus I was, under a great deal of scrutiny. The governor was looking at me. The guards were looking at me. All the counselors were there looking at me. And then I didn't realize it, but all the other organizations and counselors knew about this, because when they heard there was a Kung Fu teacher in a maximum security prison, they're like, what? Even the guards actually were going to sign a petition against me, because they saw me teaching them punches and kicks and go, what the heck are you doing? You bringing in somebody to make these guys, these are all murderers and criminals, and you brought somebody in here to make them more dangerous? And so initially the guards were actually opposed to me. But by the end of my, even not by the end of it, but after like 2 months of teaching there, all of my students ended up becoming better behaved and better mannered. So all the guards actually signed a petition and got all the counselors and a bunch of people to sign this petition. I don't know how many there were. I never even saw it. But they signed a petition, and without my knowing it, they petitioned the governor of Utah to make me paid, because I was just doing it as a volunteer thing. It was one of those things I stumbled into. As I met one of the people counselors there, and he asked if I'd, come and do a little Tai Chi program, thinking it was, of course, a lot more gentle than it was. But I teach Shaolin Kung Fu, even when I'm teaching Tai Chi. And so when I taught the program, and this guy even was in the program, he liked it. I think I might have. Anyway, he really liked it. But anyway, they signed a petition. They sent it to the governor, and he actually started paying me. That was really cool. I think I got $25 a class, which, back in 1991 was okay. It's $25 an hour, which to them was a lot of money, and more than they were probably paying anybody else. And so anyway, I taught there for a year. I was volunteering for a few months, then I got paid for a year, and then, unfortunately, they pulled. Well, the ending of my program is kind of sad. Some lady, some really vicious, mean, hateful, spiteful, vengeful lady, found out that the prisoners were watching television, and she, I guess, had some crime happen to maybe one of her kids or something like that, and she thought that the prisoners should be suffering more, and they need to be punished more, and they shouldn't have any liberties. And she got this whole thing going in Utah to punish the prisoners, to make them suffer. I mean, it's horrible. How can people come out of prison and be good citizens if you're just putting them in a box and hitting them with sticks and making them miserable? Some people just don't understand how to raise people. She was probably a horrible mother. She must have been a horrible mother. But anyway, she got this petition and made this big stink about the prisoners were living too high, living the high life. And so they took all their televisions away, they took away all their arts and craft programs, and they cut my program. And they said, they said, sorry, you're really benefiting the prisoners, but we got this new edict where we got to cut all the programs because the public decided that the prisoners were too happy. So they pulled my program. Really a terrible thing, because I was making them better. In fact, even to the end of the days when I was there, the recidivism rate, when people are in prison and they're mistreated and they're dealing with other prisoners and they're learning how to get along with other convicts and criminals, they end up becoming more criminals, not lesser criminals. So you're taking people in society that made a mistake and then putting in with a whole bunch of people who are professional mistake makers, and they're making everybody, more criminal. And they come out, and only 20% of those people who are in maximum security, at least, actually were able to stay in society without coming back to prison. Only 20% would ever, succeed. Less than a quarter of those people who go to prison would ever succeed back in society. But they said all of mine, I only had 15 students, but of my 15 students, last time I checked was in the late 90s, they said only a few came back. I was like at a 80% stayed in society, and only 20% came back. It was only like three or four that ever came back to prison in my whole 15. And so I had a really success rate. I was making people better people, even prisoners, even convicts, even, these. So that's what I'm all about. That's what Shaolin Kung Fu is about. It makes you a better person. Now, I don't know if Bruce Lee teaching in prison, teaching them how to kick ass and get the first strike and fight till you're killed and never let up, is actually going to help any of those criminals be better people. Being more vicious and deadly and hurtful and, anyway. So, anyway, I don't think his program would have worked as well as mine does. So anyway, getting back to this, be Shaolin. So Shaolin is a temple. The Shaolin is just a nickname for a Buddhist temple. Before there was any Kung Fu there, it was called the Shaolin, which means young forest. It was nestled in the Song Mountains in northern China, and this is the nickname of the temple. They give them all nicknames, the Happy Lotus Temple or whatever. You can name it anything. But anyway, it was the Young Forest Temple. So anyway, when they brought Kung Fu into it, it became the Young Forest Kung Fu, Shaolin Kung Fu, from the Shaolin Temple. So it was just a nickname for it. But I think that the combination of Buddhism, and remember the guy who created Kung Fu, first guy who brought Kung Fu there from India was Bodhidharma, and he brought Kalari Payattu, which was an Indian martial art. He brought that to the temple, and then he was the founder of Zen Buddhism. He was ostracized. The monks said, hey, we don't want your exercise, and, you're from India, and you got a beard, and we don't, you're a different, he was not, I don't think they were prejudiced against him. And he wasn't well received, even though the guy that founded that temple 100 years before had been a monk who came from India. But he was the next guy that came from India, and they didn't treat him very well. He was kind of an outcast. So he lived in a cave. He actually never lived in the temple, as far as I know. Never, ever. They never gave him room and board. He had to live in that temple, and I don't know what he's eating, bugs, flowers, or whatever up there, because probably wasn't coming down for dinner at the temple. I don't know how he ate up there, but for 8 years he lived in that cave till he died. And the rumor is they even poisoned him because he was getting this fan club of all these young monks wanting to go up and learn kung fu. And so, hey, well, why don't you eat some of this? And I think they poisoned him and killed him because they didn't want the competition of this guy they didn't like, and they made live in a cave. So Buddhism has horrible stories to it. And by the way, well, I'll tell you about that later. I'm doing a rock opera called Buddha, a rock opera audiobook. So I've already started planning it. I haven't started recording it. Well, kind of. I've recorded some of the rough songs, but none of the masters. Anyway, so the foundation of Shaolin Kung Fu, is actually a hippie from India who was not well received, ostracized, and really only appealed to probably the young monks, and was, not appreciated for that. So kind of like me, I'm an outcast. I'm living up here in the mountain in my cave. Well, I was homeless for 6 years. Even my family's kicked me out. I know what it's like to be an outcast. My parents, I think that I had another relative who was an outcast. They didn't like him. He had more problems with the law than I did. And I don't know if he was as smart as I am, but he was an outcast, and he died on the street. And so I think that's what everybody was just hoping. I was just going to die on the street. And all my relatives, just kind of ignored me for 6 years, thinking, oh, he's going to die on the street. Don't worry about him. But I didn't. I didn't die. Fortunately, because I was teaching Shaolin Kung Fu. I was a Shaolin monk. And as a Shaolin monk, we actually, traditionally, we're supposed to travel around and live the homeless life anyway. So for me, being homeless was almost a vacation. That's what my daughter kept saying. She goes, well, Dad, you're not really homeless. You're just a hippie on vacation. Go live at the beach. But I was in North Hollywood because I had students, but even my daughter was saying, no, just go off and live at the beach. You're on vacation, permanent vacation. So my daughter didn't worry about me. But my parents, I don't think, had such an optimistic view of my homelessness. So anyway, I know what it's like to be an outcast. But be Shaolin, and being Shaolin is helping people. All the time I was homeless and I was helping people. I was helping prostitutes. I protected women at night. There was girls who were getting raped, and I protected them, and I really did. So there's a lot of women, well, not, only a few actually, who'd give me thanks, and appreciation for having been an overseer, and they'd sleep near my car and stuff like that. Because then I could oversee them, I could watch them, and nobody harmed them when they were near me. So, and then I taught some of the people. I worked with some of the junkies. I had a couple of junkies who were really appreciative, and I thought they were making progress. But then they kind of disappeared. I don't know what happened to them. Probably prison. I'm not sure. But anyway, but yeah, I was teaching some other homeless people, but that didn't go very far, unfortunately. But, I was helping, and I had a good reputation. It was one of the reasons I never didn't get accosted and nobody broke into my truck or anything, is because of my reputation. They'd always see me at the park teaching classes. Well, I was only teaching 3 or 4 days a week, but everybody was saying, hey, I saw you teaching class today. They think it was a big deal to see me out there teaching class, especially being a homeless person, So they kind of looked up to me as being a more successful homeless people. A lot of homeless people they thought I was like pretending to be homeless. They go, oh, you're just out here because you're going to write a book about this, aren't you? You're like in fact, some people thought I was a narc. A narcotics agent. I was a spy. And so a lot of the people who were on drugs kind of stayed away from me because they were afraid I was going to turn them in. They thought I was some sort of a government spy, but eventually I think they figured out I wasn't. But but for the first few years, I think, honestly, a lot of people thought I was a government agent. In fact, some people said I was NSA. I got accused of that a couple of times. A couple people chose me. You work for the NSA. They just couldn't believe I was homeless, because I didn't have drug problems. I wasn't psychologically messed up, and I was teaching Kung Fu. They just couldn't understand why I was homeless. Of course, to be honest with you, I couldn't either. I still think it was just such a shame that I was neglected, and friends and relatives just left me out there in the cold for 6 years. But anyway. But like I said, I enjoyed myself. I was probably the happiest homeless person you'll ever meet. I had a good time, and I had my cat, and my cat was healthy and happy, and we lived really well. And I lived off free food. I had a routine. I'd go around to all the churches. I had several churches in the Burbank place where I could do my laundry for free. And so I had a whole routine just driving around and picking up free food all week long. So I always had too much food. I always had extra food and I'd share with people. Okay, hey, I was supposed to just read the contents. I'm looking forward to not talking about this homeless life. It's been a year now, but obviously it's my current life is still, it's not like I'm homeless, but I still don't associate with people. It's May Day. It's actually it's 1st of May. It's Workers' Day. And so this is the May Day podcast of Buddha Zen. The person who was never supposed to be a worker. I was a union carpenter and all kinds of different jobs. I was a teamster. I was in the laborers union, the teamster union, the carpenters union, the musician union, and and working with anyway, I could go on and on. I shouldn't have been a worker. My mind was my talent, and I should have been appreciated, but my parents don't even appreciate it to this day. They still won't listen to my music or read my books to this very day. And so anyway, so I know what it's like to be an outcast. But being Shaolin, I had a great life as best you can, as healthy and happy as I possibly could, and always helping other people. So that's what being Shaolin is. And so that's what I'm trying to impress with you, is to be Shaolin. A lot of people would have probably been really depressed being in my environment and being secluded and prejudiced and, ostracized like I was. But I just dealt with it. Okay, so here we go. Let's finish this up. Let's go with the table of contents. This is the Tai Chi beginner book. Like I said, I wrote this when I was in prison. I've been teaching for years and I needed something more organized. And this book really helped. And to even prove it helped, I taught for like 2 years at a YMCA in Tahunga. And my students weren't getting anywhere. I was teaching exactly the same. And I was teaching the same normal way in my semester system, but they just weren't graduating and they weren't advancing and they just weren't becoming better people. I could tell I wasn't changing them. I was watching all these yoga classes and everything around me for like many years, and they didn't advance either. None of these you see a yoga person 5 years later who is the exact same person, who has the exact same talents, abilities, perspectives, and everything as he had 5 years before. They didn't grow or advance either. And so I realized I had to, you have to get into their brain. Just making people move in different positions doesn't make them smarter. So I talked to YMCA. I said, hey, I'm going to, encourage people to buy the book. They said, I could kind of make it mandatory, but they weren't going to really enforce it. But anyway, I just told everybody, we're going to read from this book and you should buy it. And everybody got on board and started buying the book. And boy, in months you could see the difference, and people started graduating the belt tests and becoming really amazing people and telling me stories about how it's improving their work life, their business life, their family life. But this book right here, the Tai Chi Beginner, which I'm going to read you, I'm reading to you from the 1997 version. It was written originally in 1992. And it might have been edited a little bit over the years. And then when I created Tai Chi Youth, I did a final edit on this because I wanted to make this for my nonprofit. So I updated it, and this is the version that I was teaching with. And then I updated it one more time, and I made the ebook version without any pictures in it. This has 444 pictures in it. The ebook version has no pictures, just a few graphics in there, but doesn't have the pictures in it. But it's basically the exact same book with a few more updates that this book doesn't have. But this is it. This is all you need. So I'm reading from the core book. This is it, the 1997 edition of the Tai Chi Beginner book by Richard O'Connor, Buddha Zhen Shen-Lang, which translates as Spirit Wolf of Truth. All right, let's go. Table of contents. This is on the introductory page, Roman numeral 16. Okay, table of contents. The first thing in the table of contents is the program explanation coming up on page 18. So that'll probably be our next class, or next podcast. And then your daily routine, which is the next page after that, which is kind of an inspiration about how to make a daily routine, of your Kung Fu, and you're practicing the Tai Chi Chuan form. Special thanks, which I'm, thank you page. People help me write this book and get started in my professional teaching career. And then welcome along. And this welcome along page is a really cool thing. It was a two-sided one-page thing I'd always hand out to my students. And when I was teaching at this one rehabilitation center, I think it was a Turnabout Rehabilitation, one of the instructors, sometimes the instructors would come in and tend the classes, which is fine. They didn't have to pay, but they had open In fact, there were probably supposed to be kind of like the guards. When I was in the prison, there was supposed to be, I think, one guard for every 3-4 people. And by the time I was done teaching there was no guards. They just, just leave them alone. And I'd be there with, 12, 15 students, 12, 15 convicts all by myself. And I had no concerns. Got along fine with them. And I never felt threatened, ever. And I got some funny stories, of course, I could tell about my prison classes. But anyway, that welcome along page that I wrote, one of the counselors just happened to read that, or maybe he got I forget how he got a hold of it, but he said, man, I love this welcome along page. He said, can I make a copy of this and actually give it to my people that he's a counselor for in these rehabs? This is a rehab. And he said, can I give this to my people? I said, sure, I'm honored, put my name on it, and I don't know if he did, but anyway, he used my welcome along because he thought it was just a really good way to invite people on a new journey, on a new path in life, which is what that page is. Okay, so now this book is divided into 16 sections, and I teach the Yang style Tai Chi Chuan short form of Shaolin Chi Mantis in 16 sections, and I teach one section a week, so that's 16 weeks, which is 4 months. So then I teach the whole Tai Chi Chuan form in the first 4 months. So you barely get it. If you can just get from the beginning to the end without any major mistakes, you get a certificate and you pass and you get a belt stripe. You're a white sash plus 1 green stripe. Then the next semester, you relearn the whole thing and we add some Kung Fu. We start adding to the first 4 Ton Tuis, and you get a 1,200-year-old Shaolin Kung Fu form, probably one of the oldest Kung Fu forms known to mankind to this day. And it's Lohan 1. I'm not sure if there was 10 or 12 of them. I've heard different stories, but I only teach one of them. And it's so kind of archaic and primitive that, people don't really want to learn all of those when they can learn about over the next 300 years, they added a lot more kicks and really neat moves to it. So they kind of packaged them into the Shaolin 10 forms. And those are what I teach. And those are like the second version of the Shaolin Lohan. And so those are what I teach. And those were from about 900 AD, 1000 AD, somewhere around there. They consolidated these dances. And these became the official curriculum of the Shaolin Temple Kung Fu program. And so I teach those 10 forms. And those are really cool. But I actually tried to not teach the Shaolin 1. And when I was sending my curriculum out in the beginning of the 90s to all my school brothers in different places around the country, several people, or at least a couple of people said, hey, you're not teaching Shaolin 1. And there was another one, Small Circular Fist. And they said, you got to include those forms. Those are ancient forms. You got to put those in there. And so to make everybody happy, because I wanted everybody to be, support my school, I said, okay, I'll put Lohan 1 back in there, and I'll put the Small Circular Fist form back in there. So I added those back into my beginner program. So they are in, sorry if I made a big noise in the microphone. So those are in my beginner program again. So the first thing you get after you learn this Tai Chi Chuan form is the next semester you learn the Lohan 1. But every semester, for all 4 semesters of the beginner program, 4 times 4, 16 months. But now I'm teaching online. I'm making all these videos. It's probably more like a 6-month program. So it's probably really a 2-year program. 6 months for each belt rank. But anyway, you relearn the Tai Chi form in the second semester. So first semester, you learn the Tai Chi Chuan form from beginning to end. Second semester, you learn how to do the breathing. So it's inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Sorry about the microphone. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. So the whole entire form, all like 50 some moves of it, 54 moves maybe, is choreographed with breathing. And that unlocks the Qigong and makes it a moving meditation. And there's none of my other Kung Fu forms that work like this. This is the only one that really works with Qigong and make it a whole moving meditation. This is one, so that's one of the reasons I love this form. It's a beautiful form. And like I said, it has so much potential. And every move is a fighting move. So anyway, so the second semester, you learn how to breathe with it. So by the end of the second semester, you've mastered the breathing and the moving, which makes you more controlled with the movements because now you have to time the movements to go with the breathing. And you've learned to control your breathing because you have to coordinate that with the movements. And you have to make it at even pace. So this makes you much more... I'm getting all this energy now just from doing that little bit. It makes you, now your Qigong starts to unlock itself because now by being able to be relaxed and breathe and move, you can now go into the Qigong, and that's the third semester. So in the third semester now, you learn to move the energy in your body and all throughout your body. And then during the fourth semester, you learn how to externalize it and control it and move it from finger to finger and all different parts of your body. You really get really super control with your Qi energy. So that's my beginner program. And that's when you get away from your white sash. So that is white sash plus 1 green stripe, 2 green stripes, 3 green stripes. Well, 4 semesters, right? White, 1 stripe, 2 stripes, 3 stripes. So there's 4 semesters. And that's my beginner program of Shaolin Chi Mantis. Here's my school logo. I'm wearing a school shirt right now. So anyway, so it's a great beginner program. It's the equivalent or more than a black belt in any other karate style. And I've been hanging out with karate masters for what, 30 years now, so I can definitely compare. And so it's definitely a black belt, and that's just my beginner program. Then you start the weapons. Then you start the saber and the spear and swords and all these different things, and that's the intermediate program. And then in my advanced program, you start the praying mantis, because the praying mantis is just mean. That's awful stuff. That was created in the 1600s by a senior monk at the Shaolin Temple. Actually, the Song Shan, not the original Shaolin Temple, but another one, and the Song in the Shandong Shaolin Temple. And he created the praying mantis, which is mean, vicious, and very effective. It's the guy ripping out the jugular and going for pressure points and paralyzing the arms. And it's mean stuff. There's even this one form which is one of my favorites. It's called Monkey Steals a Peach, and the peach is the groin, and so it's got all these groin strikes and back in those days, of course, they didn't wear jeans, so you could really, I guess, get them better than you could in modern clothing. But still, a lot of strikes. My master taught me. I mastered groin strikes with even the hand. I mean, there's a whole art to just being able to whack. Okay, whack-a-mole. Anyway. So that's the praying mantis, and then you become a black belt, which is basically there's still so many weapons. There's 18 classical weapons, and it takes 4 to 6 months to learn any one weapon. That's why at the Shaolin Temple they don't teach any of this traditional kung fu, because it takes 4 to 6 months to learn one weapon or learn one form. These are very difficult martial arts, and so. Anyway, and during the black belt training, then I teach you a few more. There's a weapon every semester. Every semester you get a different weapon. And so all the way through the black belt program. But my goal in the black belt, which nobody's ever made it to, is to actually make you a successful kung fu school. And so all of the energies of all of my Shaolin Chi Mantis program is to make sure that every single Shaolin Chi Mantis instructor is a success. Financially and with their life. I mean, just to make them a success. So I want the school to be like a super supportive family franchise, and not worried about making money, worried about making everybody a success in life. And I think if you're a success in life, then that's money. I mean, I haven't made that much money, but all my relatives have gone bankrupt, and they consider themselves to be more successful than me. But I've never gone bankrupt. I mean, I was living with, by margin in my bank account was usually below $100 all the time for 6 years, but I still didn't go bankrupt. So anyway. So my goal is to make Shaolin Chi Mantis a successful franchise operation. And I'm really disappointed that, unfortunately, I founded this school formally in 1992 and made it a business and, business licenses and logo and everything like that, and filing fictitious name statements ever since. I'm really disappointed it hasn't been more of a success. I mean, I've already had my 25-year anniversary and I was homeless with only a half dozen students. So I'm kind of disappointed with the business end of how successful I've been, but I'm still surviving. I'm making it. I'm still in there. So anyway, let's see if we can make it more of a success by making all you a success. So anyway, be a Shaolin hero. And that's what I was. Like I said, I was a homeless hero. A lot of the ladies who walk their dogs called me the Silver Fox. Okay, so here we go. So anyway, I said there's 16 sections. Now when you go, let me just go through this. It's been a lot more. I haven't even got started on it. The idea here is each section, when I teach you these sections, I've got 16 themes. Themes of life, themes of thinking, themes of how to interact with reality, each one. So each week, I want you to kind of like be embodied with this new philosophical life awareness concept. The slogan of Shaolin Chi Mantis is, the ultimate self-defense is self-awareness. All right. So, so I'm going to go through and give you the themes, and then I'll go back real quickly and break them down. So each section has a theme. So the first one is seek outside, which is what you're doing. If you started this class, you're seeking outside of your environment, coming into my world. You're looking outside your world for something new, and that's me. So seek outside. Number 2 is look. Okay, if you're in this class, you got to learn by looking at me. I'm not going to move your arms for you. You got to look at me and then figure out how to do it. So learning how to look and learn is the second chapter. The third chapter is listen. I'm going to explain things just like now I'm talking to you. And you have to learn how to hear what I'm saying and understand. And when I'm giving you instructions and when I'm leading, you have to learn how to listen. Okay, the fourth one is to learn. Okay, so you're looking, you're listening, you're seeking, you're learning. You got to learn something. You got to practice. You got to somehow know more than before I met you. Okay, so each class you got to learn something. Okay, each week you have to learn something. You have to have more of the Tai Chi form. You're always learning. You have to develop this concept of always learning. If you want to be a stupid person, stop learning. That's all a stupid person is a person who stopped learning. Any smart person can never know everything. As Socrates says, a smart person is a guy who realizes he doesn't know everything. And that's so true. Every time you learn something, you realize, hey, there's 3 things I don't know now. Learning just means that you realize there's more you don't know. And so learning is an attitude, and that's what I get to my students. That's why almost all my students, maybe all of them, at least all the ones who've made it past 1 year, go up a grade level because they develop this attitude towards learning. All the people they hang around with are just cattle. They're just people who are just trying to get by and then go play a game and watch TV, or, they're turning their mind off. They're not used to learning. And I try to get people to learn that learning is a natural way to live. Okay, number 5 is power. Okay, now I teach what power is. And power is a balancing of several different factors together, and I explain all of that. And so in other words, power is not just one thing, it's not just 2 things, it's not even just 3 things, it's the balancing of these 3 things that I'll teach you. And that's what real power is. Okay, and then next one is energy. What is energy? That's a big topic. So we're going to talk about energy and how that relates, of course, to our Tai Chi and what we're doing and how we're actually now becoming more energetic people. Chapter 7 is production. So energy is something you kind of see from the inside, coming from the outside in, the energy of the sun, the energy of the electrical wires, the energy that comes from food. Well, we're going to talk about production, how you're going to produce energy. Now the energy is going to come from you and go out. Okay, that's chapter 7. I'm going to turn the page here. Okay, chapter 8, look within. Okay, remember I got you in there, now you're looking at the energy. Now we're going to look inside of you for a lot of other things. You're going to start looking inside of you for, lots of things, okay? In fact, that breaks down with meditation and judgment. So you're going to look within your mind and your body and all kinds of different things. Now, the next one, section 9, is truth. Now that's actually my name. I didn't know that when I wrote this book, though. I wrote this book in 1992. I didn't get the name Truth until like 1994. I was named by the Chen family. And they wanted to make me Chen. They wanted to bring me into their family. But I said, no, I'm not going to really teach Chen-style Tai Chi. I don't feel that's right. If I take on the Chen name, I would feel obligated to teach Chen Tai Chi. And I don't want to. I like my Yang Tai Chi. I like the way I teach it and what I've got. And it's not that I wasn't still learning. And I even had Chen stylists. And I learned a lot more Chen in the late 90s even. But I don't want to teach Chen style, which is really cool, but it's really, in fact, it's a better fighting style than the Yang. When I did learn the Chen and I use it on my students, they complain, hey, you're hurting me, because it's very violent. But anyway, so we came up with, it was actually the daughter of the Chen family. She was a teenager. In fact, they owned a restaurant, and I was in there eating one time. We were discussing this, and I was kind of, talking about how they wanted to give me a Chinese name, because I was also big with the Cantonese Society, and I was performing for all kinds of Cantonese Chinese associations in Utah. And so they considered me part of the Chinese family. They always said, hey, you're part of China. You're part of our Chinese community, because I was teaching the Chinese Kung Fu and really embodying all their traditions. And so anyway, the teenager, I remember she was over there working over at the malts machines or the drink machines, and she overheard us and she said, name him Jen. What about the name Jen? The dad thought about it. I didn't know what they're talking about. And he goes, that's a great idea. A very old family. Very old family. Good name. Good name. It means truth. It's a good name. Good name for you. And truth, you teach Buddhism. Buddhism, we call Buddhism the truth in China. And you teach the truth. I like it. And so the daughter and the dad are all getting all happy. Yeah, name him Jen. And then they knew my name was Coyote. In fact, it was even on my daughter's birth certificate. My name was Richard Coyote O'Connor, I think. I used Coyote so much, it's even on her birth certificate. But he goes, we don't have coyotes in China. Because everybody knew I was called the Coyote because I was performing and doing my rock and roll thing too. We don't have coyotes in China. We have wolves. But Wolf, good name. Wolf, martial art name, Wolf. And I don't know how the spirit came into it, but he ended up calling me Spirit Wolf because he thought of me as a spiritual wolf, And so Spirit Wolf of truth, Zhen Shen-Lang. They always say the last name first, Zhen being truth, but Spirit Wolf of truth if you put it first, middle, last. Zhen Shen-Lang, good name, good kung fu name. I can remember him sitting across from me and just kind of talking to himself, as he's naming me. And so by the end of that meal, we were, kind of talking and having a good time with them. I'd just go hang out sometimes. I was probably putting up flyers. He was on State Street, I think, and I'd put up flyers on State Street, so I'd stop in. And he goes, yeah. So anyway, that's how I got my name, Zhen Shen-Lang. I was named by the Chen family, and thanks to his daughter, whoever, I don't know who she is, if you're out there. Thank you. And but it was her idea to make me Zhen, so truth, and it all fit together. So it was kind of just a nice mixture of things. And so anyway, but that's my name, Truth. Okay, where were we? That was chapter 9. Chapter 10 is friendliness. Now, unlike Bruce Lee, our goal is not to intimidate. Our goal is to be friendly. In fact, when Wong Jack Man went to meet Bruce, he went to shake his hands, and that's when Bruce Lee tried to poke his eye out, and he scratched him above the eye because he dodged it. He moved back or something. So Bruce Lee is not a friendly person. In fact, if you listen to him in his interviews, very aggressive, very unfriendly, very intimidating. He's challenging constantly, even just in a casual conversation. He's just relaxed. He's very aggressive. Not a friendly person. I mean, he was able to be gregarious, obviously to some extent, but that's our goal in Shaolin. It's not be intimidating. You don't have to let everybody know you can beat them up. Doesn't matter. Our goal is to just be friendly and helpful and nice. I get along great with kids. Kids love me. I mean, when I was raising my kids, everybody wanted me to be their dad because I was playing with the kids. The other adults would all go off and talk with each other, and I'd be there playing with the kids. So we'd go to the zoo. Half a dozen parents would meet up, and we'd go to the zoo. And I'd be the one playing with the kids, and the parents would all be hanging out with each other. So that's part of being friendly. So friendly, befriend. That's chapter 12. That was chapter 10. Just an attitude of friendliness. Number 11 is do, okay, which is before the Nike slogan became popular, is do it, or whatever it is. But do, and that's what we do. We do Tai Chi, okay? And you do whatever you do, and you do your lifestyle. And so anyway, that's a whole concept. Now, number 12 is befriend. Now, it's one thing to be friendly, somebody talks to you, you're nice to them. But to be overtly friendly, to try to make friends, to try to go that extra distance and not just be polite, but to actually try to offer your services and be of service and be willing to help. That's befriend, be generous. In fact, is generous one of those things? Don't see it. But anyway, and then the next one is pride. Number 13. Now, of course, dumb people and insecure people and people that are unbalanced think pride is a bad thing. Because for them to have pride is wrong. It is a bad thing. If you're an ugly, evil, stupid person, you shouldn't be proud of being an ugly, evil, stupid person. So pride is a bad thing for them. But if you're a good person, you're an honest person, you're a friendly person, you're a successful person, you're a creative person, you should have pride in that. And pride should be based on good qualities, not your bad pride. You shouldn't be proud of being a great, thief or a great liar. Although I think probably maybe they do. But your pride should be based on good qualities. Ow, that hurt. My cat just clawed my leg. He got on it and stretched, I was like, it dug in. Well, hi, buddy, you got my attention. You want to come up here? Come on. See, gotta be friendly, even after he hurt me. Okay, anyway, where were we? Pride. Oh, yeah, so pride should be an appreciation of your good qualities. You should have something to be proud of. If you're not proud, that means you must be a loser, because that means you don't have anything to be proud of, and that's a horrible thing. That's not a good thing. Yeah, the counter's still going. Okay, just looking to make sure everything's still recording. I'm still getting used to this. This is my first time ever recording a video podcast and an audio podcast using Logic Pro here and Filmic Pro on the camera. So I got two different programs going two different places, two different audios. Anyway, but pride is something you really should have. And if you don't have pride, that's because you're probably a loser or a bad person. So you should have pride. Okay, and that's why I teach my students, be proud, be a good person and then be proud of that. Okay, and then next one is confidence. And once again, you should have confidence, because your pride is based on having certain skills. And so by having these skills, you have the confidence to know that you can do something that you're good at. Once again, if you don't have confidence, that means you're not probably good at something, which means you don't have any pride. So all these things all hook together. See, that's why this program is so awesome. I develop all of these different aspects to make the person a complete person. Okay, number 15 is floating. Okay, so now you're mastering these movements. We're getting at the end of the form. So now I don't want it to be clunky. I don't want you to be bouncing around. I want you to kind of float through the form. I want you to kind of get relaxed, to have control. It takes more control to walk without bouncing than it does to just kind of plod along. But to be able to walk without bouncing is actually more difficult. And so that's what I'm trying to promote now is, okay, let's turn this into an art. Let's be artful in our movements, floating. And the last chapter is in water. So we got the floating, and now we want to be like water. We want to flow through the movements. We don't want to be, we don't want to be jagged. We want to be fluid, And so you got the floating, you got the fluid, you got all these. So there you are. There's the first 16 lessons, first 16 weeks of my school, the first belt rank, the first 25% of my beginner program. After this semester, you actually will read the book again, but we'll go into 2 more books. In fact, what I usually do is I combine this first semester with the second semester so they relearn this stuff, because you make it through the book, you don't really master it, I found. And so they got to read it again. And then the intermediate book, I divide that up into 3 semesters. So instead of having to read that whole book in one semester, you only have to read a third of it, then a third and a third to get out of the beginner program. So I kind of just added as kind of the frosting on the cake. It's about chi energy control. So in the second semester, you're just learning the breathing. So it's kind of ahead of you. It's too advanced learning. You're still now got to master the breathing. The energy's you're not ready for it. But we introduce the concepts. And then also in the second semester, because I've started your Kung Fu, you start the Shaolin Kung Fu beginner book. So in that third semester, you're really kind of reading 3 books. This book again, so you really get the information better. You're starting in the intermediate, which is just kind of introducing the chi energy concepts, which is, of course, new to everybody who has never learned it. And then the Shaolin Kung Fu, which is teaching you now the Buddhist Kung Fu, the real martial art thing of it, with the Buddhism, but there's Buddhism in this book, as you can kind of see. So there it is. Now, if I was to break it down just a little bit, really, maybe that's all I need to do. In the first section, you're learning the stances. There's about 5 pages about different stance training. In the second one on look, you're getting kicking lessons, I'm seeing. And every one of these is a different section of the Tai Chi form too. And then section 3, the listen, you're going to get school rules, and you're going to learn about Shifu. What does that mean to be a Shifu, a father? So you're going to learn a little bit about respect and appreciation. Section number 4, which is learning, you're going to talk about performing, and you're going to learn how to now do tournaments. We're going to start introducing you to how to perform and how to walk and stand and how you appear to other people. And some history of Tai Chi and some Taoist concepts, which is part of history of Tai Chi, because Tai Chi was invented by the Taoists, not the Buddhists. A different temple, the Wu-Tang temple, Wu-Tang temple is where Tai Chi was from, and then by the trickle-down effect, anyway, I'm misusing that. But anyway, at the temple below, or the village below, is the Chen village. Remember, those are the people that named me, the Chen village. So they were the original public version of Tai Chi Chuan. It was invented at the temple, but then they kind of solidified it in the Chen village, Chen Chia Kao, which means Chen village in Chinese. And then a Yang person came to that village and learned it, and then he took it back, and that's how Yang Tai Chi began. He's taught it to his kids over 3 generations, not teaching it to the public. And then the 3rd generation of his kids, those are the ones that made it public. That became what I then learned. And then I've gone back, like I said, I got a bunch of Chen family people that I learned. I was named by the Chen family. Okay, and then the section 5, power, basic punches. We really elaborate on punches and how to generate power in those course. And then section number 16, the energy. We're talking about breathing and chi and energy circulation, how the energy moves in your body. Okay, the production. Now the Dantian. There's actually, most people think of Dantian, that one. If you're to divide your body in half, because I'm a musician, so I know how things are in cycles. The center of your energy is your Dantian. It's about 3 inches below your navel. And that's where most of your energy comes from. But if you look at the chakras are all energy centers. The only difference between ours and theirs is they make like 3 chakras here, and I only make 2. I have a chakra for the throat, and then I jump straight down to the heart, and then I go straight down to the belly. They got one more in there for some reason. I don't know why. And then the next one is the groin, bottom of your spine. You could think of the whole neck as one, so it's kind of the back of the neck, but I might pass that if I've already counted it in the front, and go up to the top of the head, which is kind of the top of the spine. So you get the bottom of the spine to the top of the spine. And then over here to that third eye, this spot in your head, that you see Indians always putting that dot there. Well, that's a mental energy thing. That's where your brain kind of has an energy thing. And then the next one's down here. And my first wife was the daughter of an acupuncturist. And whenever I would start to sneeze, whoop, I just knocked my microphone down. Sorry about that. Whenever I would start to sneeze or look like I was getting a cold, she'd get out her acupuncture laser thing and zap me right there. And that was how she'd prevent me from ever getting a cold. So I never had a cold the whole time I was married to her. That's my first wife back in the 80s. And let's see. So anyway, you got energy center here, and so anyway, those are your energy center, and then of course your mouth. But it kind of goes through your tongue to your. I look at it as kind of coming in past the throat. 1, 2, 3, bottom down here. Did I do that right? 1, 2, 3. Then the groin. 4, spine. 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'd call those the 8 chakras. That's how I teach them. And there's like three of them are really powerful ones, and 5 are the lessers. But I break it all down. And okay, so where are we now? Those are the Dantians, and then a concept on doing well. That's a really cool thing to talk about with students, especially when I was teaching at rehabs, because they always thought they were losers and they were criminals, and they'd been on the butt end. Most people who are criminals and losers are the people who've been the most yelled at, scolded, punished, and spanked by their parents. It would seem that the more you hit a dog, the less it becomes a good dog. And a lot of people who are in prisons and have trouble with crime are the people who have been hit and scolded the most. They get punished more. That doesn't make you a better person to be punished. And over the last 35 years since I've started teaching, I've seen that to be true. Punishing does not make you smarter. So let's see, chapter 8, that look within. Now we got meditation and judgment. So those are concepts that I teach along with that. The truth one, sleep and practicing, traditional rules. And there's an open book exam. There's several exams, and every month you got to perform in front of the whole class, and that's a whole thing in itself, which is so awesome. I learned that in prison. And what I would do is I'd have all the students line up, and then one by one, they'd have to solo perform once a month for their kind of like, just make sure everybody's on track, and I could really see them. I could kind of see them practicing in a group, but why waste all that time having to watch all these people in a group and look at one person, then have them all do it in a group, and then watch another person? I came up with a better idea. Have everybody line up, and then everybody performs at once, and then everybody gives them criticisms except me. Positive, constructive criticisms. I mean, it can be a negative criticism, but it has to be constructive. It has to help them. And this is something I invented in the prison, because I started to realize they were always intimidating each other and making fun of each other and deriding and saying deprecating remarks. And I thought, this is not right. These are people who I'm trying to improve. And so this is one of the ways that I made them better people, is I taught them to not make fun of each other, but help each other. And then they not only felt good for helping somebody, but then the person not only felt better, but improved. And these kind of relationships and abilities to communicate in a positive manner was one of the core things that made my prison and rehabs programs such a success. I mean, I could kind of see that over the long run. Okay, so anyway, where were we? Truth, friendliness, teaching the way, the ancient Taoism, the do. We're talking about heaven or hell. What's the reality you live in? Befriending, that's stretching, your life fulfillment, you'll be able to relax and everything. Pride based on discipline. Once again, discipline is to be a disciple, not punishing. To me, the word discipline comes from the word to learn from, to be a disciple, not to punish. So to be a disciple of someone, because remember, if you got to learn something, to have that pride in learning, so you got to learn from somebody. You can't just pull it out of thin air. And warrior disciplines, a little bit of the warrior stuff coming through. Have pride in your self abilities. Confidence, right time and place is one of the concepts in that chapter. Floating, and then in water, then we talk about the certificates and graduating and all that type stuff and advancing. So you can see this whole book is really instrumental in making the Tai Chi form work. I could just make somebody just learn it, the movements from beginning to end, but they wouldn't be any smarter. They wouldn't be better people. But by introducing all these concepts and psychology and philosophy and self-development and esteem, within the program, that's what makes my Shaolin Kung Fu so incredibly wonderful. And that's why I even enjoy teaching it. It's good for me. I can't teach it and learn it enough times. I've been recycling this information since the 1980s, since 1984. By 1987, I had like a routine down. I was teaching people out of my house. So talking a long time, but I never get tired of going over these topics. It's such great stuff. I just can't even hear it enough times myself to make myself a better person. So anyway, that's the book. And there we go. Those are the table of contents. I don't know how long this was. I'm looking at bars and beats up here. I don't know how long this was in time. I can look over here. Oh, it's been an hour. I can see it on my phone. So let's see. Okay, so continuing on here. Let's get out of here. What do we got? I must have a song for you. I'm not going to get up and go look, but I should have had my sheet. Maybe it's behind the book here. So anyway, I'll have a song for you to get out of here. And there you go. Thanks for being here. Buddha Jen here. And this is the Zen podcast of Buddha Jen, me. So this is my own personal little Zen thing as a Kung Fu teacher. Not really representing the Shaolin Zen religion or church, which is never really a church. But I mean, it could be, maybe it should have been. When I created the nonprofit Tai Chi Youth, I was going to create a church. I was creating a Zen religion. But being in Utah, of course, they didn't support, don't make a religion, They said you can't get government grants. Well, I didn't make a difference because I got NEA grants back in the 90s, but I haven't gotten any grants since. So that hasn't really been much of an issue for me. But maybe in the future it will, because we are non-denominational. I mean, we teach all these religious concepts, but you don't have to join any church or religion, be a member, and you can be a member of anything else. So we're not really a church religion membership thing. We just have all these religious concepts in here. So we're an educational organization, and that's our 501c3 and Tai Chi Youth. And Tai Chi Youth uses this book, uses all the program, it just goes slower. Now, in Shaolin Chi Mantis, you got to get all the way through this whole book and all the way to the end of the form to get your first stripe. In Tai Chi Youth, you only have to get through half the book and half the form, and you get your first belt stripe. And then you get the next half of the form, and then you get your second belt stripe. And then you get the next semester, and you get your third stripe. And then after that, you're going to the intermediate level, so I took my beginner program and just stretched it out into three beginner, advanced, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So this whole beginner program is the entire Tai Chi Youth program, but it just goes slower. And most adults and everybody likes Tai Chi Youth better. This is a really push. You should really do 3 days a week and practice every day between this to make it work. So you really got to dedicate. If you could dedicate 6 days a week to doing this program, this is the ultimate program. But that's more than I've learned to expect from most people, because most people are just cattle. And I remember I'm teaching all people from all grade levels, F's, D's, C's, B's, and A's. The A students are always going, give me more. And so I've actually, in many cases, I get these A students, these really gifted, smart people in my classes, and I give them more, and I'll teach them private lessons. But I always found that by the end of 1 year, man, they just reach this peak because that's so much crammed so fast that they tend to overload at that point. And I realize, okay, it's just like this is getting too much. But the slower pace is, I think, a little better. Make it a little less stressful, even for a smart person. But this program is perfect. This is the perfect program for anybody who's a smart person. But I was combining the slow, like I said, they were in Tai Chi Youth, and I put them in Shaolin Chi Mantis, and I was teaching them private lessons. I was teaching them some intermediate and advanced stuff, spear. I've experimented with how much people can learn. And I've definitely been able to overload even my smartest persons, the A students. I can overload you real easy. So, but this is good. This is a great program for anybody who's a C+ student or above. If you're less than that, then you should definitely be in Tai Chi Youth. But anyway, come along for these podcasts. You'll get this book either way. And even if you're an F student, this is going to be good for you. And hopefully I can make you a D student. I'll raise you up of 1 grade. I can at least maybe guarantee you that. I can bring anybody up a grade level. If you're an A student, then I'm just going to make you more aware, smarter, better physically fit, more confident, more a better fighter. I mean, I'll take you up a level no matter what. You'll be an A++ student. So anyway, Buddha Jen here. I'm going to get out of here. I'll have a song for you. I had something planned probably. I kind of outline these classes, so you'll get something. See you later. Oh, today's May Day. Today's Slave Day. All the workers. 80% of the world, 60 to 80% of the world are all slaves. We sell our time, okay? I've worked with, I should never have been a worker or a slave. I mean, it was kind of, I'm really rationalizing to try to make something good out of it. I'm a creative person. I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I've been publishing poetry when I was in elementary school. I was debating against teachers when I was 10 years old on the Regis Philbin show. I had no business going out there and being a teamster and just driving a forklift and loading, unloading trains and loading trucks. That was a waste of my time and talent. I shouldn't have been a carpenter. I shouldn't have been out there just banging nails and lifting boards and carrying lumber. That was a waste of my talent. I shouldn't have been a laborer when I was just carrying lumber and shoveling dirt. And I shouldn't have worked in landscaping, just shoveling gravel and pushing, lawnmowers. I mean, all these jobs and things I've had were just really a waste, but I was trying to survive because I couldn't get anybody to support my intellect, support my talents, support my creativity. And that's one of the reasons I was watching Stephen Colbert do his interviews. He interviewed Ringo Starr, and Ringo came the closest to when my answer was. He said, "Well, use 5 words to describe yourself," and I started. Came right out, and I said, "I could have been great." I mean, I'm 67. I could have all these books published and helped all these people. I could have had all this music production, and I could have helped other people to be better artists. I could have helped more people to be happy. I could have produced these programs for the public school systems and private schools to have this kung fu videos and DVDs. I mean, I could have made the world a greater place, and I could have been great. I have been great. It's just that unfortunately I've been living in a cave, like Bodhidharma. See ya.